Hi, it's Tuesday, January 29th. Dan Stein here with RJ Hauman, Mission Critical. How do we support the conferees for the Senate and House Appropriations Bill to try to deliver for Donald Trump's wall and the strongest border security package that we can get? Glad for joining us. Appreciate it. Really do appreciate you taking the time. This is kind of a critical moment. The battle's not lost. Battle's not over. We know that the president reopened the government. We do know that there's a period of time during which these conferees are going to try to negotiate some kind of a deal. Fair has said that Democrats have to come forward and argue in good faith. We know that's a pipe dream, but we're hoping that things can happen. You have a big part to play in this. So I want to welcome all of you there, and you'll notice Fair has now reached 2 million Facebook likes, 2 million. Major footprint. RJ, bring us up to date.
Everybody knows last week we were over 30 days in a government shutdown, a partial government shutdown, the longest shutdown in our nation's history. Last week, activity got kicked off on Tuesday. The House voted on 2 bills to reopen the government, neither of which funded any of President Trump's border wall. As you also remember, last Saturday, before last week, President Trump said he was open to do a deal with Democrats. He'd do a limited DACA amnesty for about 700,000 illegal aliens, an amnesty for about 300,000 TPS recipients, in exchange for border wall funding and some changes to our asylum system. The Senate voted on that bill as well as another House-passed bill to open the federal government on Thursday. Both of those proposals failed. Takes us to Friday morning. President's in panic mode. You see what happens in a lot of those airports up in New York. Flights were getting delayed. I think the White House started to panic. They needed some maneuverability. President Trump, last-minute announcement, says he's going to address the country from the Rose Garden, where he says he made a deal with House and Senate Democratic leaders to reopen the government. What was that deal? All right, what they did is they voted to reopen the federal government, all the other agencies, but then the sticking point, DHS, the vehicle you need to fund the border wall. We're going to a 3-week conference committee where we're about, I think it's 15 members of Congress, or 17 Republicans and Democrats from the House, Republicans and Democrats from the Senate. They're going to be sitting in a room over the next 3 weeks, and they're in charge of coming up with some type of spending agreement on border security. Now, Democrats and Republicans still could not be farther away. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer said, hey, when you reopen the government, then we'll negotiate on your border wall. All right. The president,
just a delay tactic?
I believe it was a delay tactic, but now the ball's in their court. The president made a good faith effort to reopen the government, and now we have these structured negotiations that will be going on over the next few weeks. So
this is your opportunity to ask us questions. I'm looking at the screen now. You can ask us questions about this conference committee. We're going to talk about who's on this conference committee, the likelihood they're actually going to reach a deal that you and I would want to support.
Yeah, so the members of this conference committee, listen closely. We're going to be putting out a phone-to-action campaign, an easy way for you to contact these elected officials. Again, even if some of these members of this conference committee, if they're not your elected official, you don't live in their state, you don't live in your district, you can still contact them. They are no longer only serving their constituents. Right now, they are hashing out a deal for everybody in our country.
Right. So they represent you. They represent you. Conference committee, not just their own state.
Correct. Here are the members right now. The Senate members: Senator Richard Shelby from Alabama, Senator Roy Blunt from Missouri, Senator Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia, Senator John Hoeven from North Dakota. Those are your 4 Republicans.
All right. Of those 4 Republicans, how many of them are supporters of real immigration reform and border security?
Well, that's the catch here. So when you're forming a conference committee, the conferees, the members who are in charge to go in that room and hash out a deal, I mean, this happens for other pieces of unrelated legislation as well. It's not an immigration thing. They come from the committee of jurisdiction. In this case, it's the Appropriations Committee. The Appropriations Committee it's an A committee. It's often a lot of people who are aligned with leadership. Not a lot of immigration hawks are on either the House or Senate Appropriations Committee. However, I think this is kind of a best case scenario of what we could get from the Senate. You know who else is on
that's because they're on the Appropriations
Committee.
Correct,
but you know who else is on the Senate Appropriations Committee? Lindsey Graham, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, many other.
But Graham wants the wall to be built, one way or the other.
He also wants an amnesty for 1.8 million people, and that is not worth any amount of border wall funding.
And we're saying none of these other Republicans, Shelby, Blunt, Caputo,
and Hovind. These
guys don't want amnesty.
I believe
Shelby's probably pretty.
I believe that these people right now. We need listen. We need to keep them. We need to hold them accountable. But right now, I believe that the White House is firmly engaged with the members of this conference committee and are having them fight for their agenda in the room. Let's look at the Democrats. Democrats are Leahy, Durbin, and Tester. Leahy and Durbin are open borders.
35, 40 years of uninterrupted obstruction. Pat Leahy, Dick Durbin, Chuck Schumer, along with the now deceased Ted Kennedy, major players in helping destroy U.S. immigration controls and limits. Who could ever expect Pat Leahy, Dick Durbin? If Dick Durbin had wanted the DREAM Act, he could have gotten it years and years and years ago. Instead, they use this as a political football. One more time, we're going to see bad faith, right?
Absolutely.
What is the possibility that this group of milquetoast Republicans that you all need to be supporting, because they're our only conferees, are going to be able to get any traction with people like with people like Dick Durbin and Leahy, over the hill Vermont Leahy?
Well, the fear is Dick Durbin and Leahy are people who have been at this game for a while, as you mentioned. They've been players in the immigration space for a while. They're not going to get rolled over. Real quick, let's just go to these members in the House, again, in case anybody listening out there lives in those districts and can reach out to them as well. It's the Republicans, Kay Granger from Texas, Chuck Fleischman from Tennessee, Tom Graves from Georgia, and Stephen Palazzo from Mississippi. A lot better on the immigration issue, those four, than the people that we're dealing with in the Senate. The Democrats on the conference committee from the House: Nita Lowey from New York, Lucille Roybal-Allard from California, David Price from North Carolina, Barbara Lee from California, probably the best Democrat on immigration in either chamber, Henry Cuellar from Texas, and Pete Aguilar from California, who had teamed up with Will Hurd earlier this year to do a mass amnesty bill. So those are the people that are going to be in the room supposedly hashing out a deal.
One sensible Democrat on that whole
One sensible Democrat is probably Henry Cuellar. Border District, he's voted for enforcement legislation before. He's voted for E-Verify. He's voted for Kate's Law, voted for sanctuary city legislation. You know, he's a sensible guy down there. He wants amnesty. He doesn't really support the wall, but he's willing to actually do some immigration enforcement.
All right, so what is the administration going to get out of this mess?
I think the chances of the administration actually getting something good in exchange, getting wall funding, period, or a deal that combines wall funding with something else that we'd be fine with, is slim to none. I think the best case scenario that happens here, and here's the one thing
Maurice O'Brien says Trump never should have reopened the government.
Yeah, that's an argument that you can make. He did cave to some extent. Why would the Democrats? You know, they know that he's in a tough situation again. He can't close the government again. So why are they going to come to the table and give him something that he wanted from the get-go? I don't think it's possible.
Should the American people be disappointed that the Republicans did not support stronger conferees?
No, I think what the American people should be most disappointed in is that Republicans didn't have this shutdown fight when they controlled both houses of Congress, both chambers. We should have done this back in March in the omnibus spending bill with Paul Ryan rather than Speaker Pelosi. We're not Republicans, but we were obviously urging them to do that. No, I think the conferees is listen, I'm a firm believer in this. The conferees that we have, the Republicans, best case scenario, the appropriations committees consist of the worst, most squishy Republicans on the immigration issue. The fact that we don't have several of the worst Republican senators on this committee is a good thing. The fact that Lindsey Graham is not in the room pushing for amnesty for upwards of 2 million people is a good thing. The fact that we have no real pro-amnesty Republicans in the House side of this conference is a good thing. I think blasting who is on this conference committee is misguided. We need to focus on influencing the people that are on that. We need to call. You need to call. We'll make an easy way for you to do this tomorrow. Call the members of the conference committee, whether you live in their state, whether you live in their district or not. Tell them to fully fund the border wall, close asylum loopholes that are attracting these caravans, and additionally, and most of all, tell them you will not accept amnesty in exchange for wall funding under any circumstances. That's a bad deal.
So listen very carefully what RJ is saying. Tomorrow, that's Wednesday, you go to our website, go to the phone to action. It will tell you exactly
front page banner,
exactly what to do, what to say, and who to say it to. And we encourage you to do that. Now, RJ, we shouldn't be in this situation.
No.
Republicans had control of Congress 2 years. President said wall funding is one of my main priorities. I want people to comment on Facebook. Who do they think is responsible for the situation that we're in now but the Republicans did not give the president wall funding in the first 2 years he was in office. And then RJ will tell us who he thinks is most responsible in the Congress for the failure to provide Trump wall funding 2 years ago to find us in this situation. I see we're getting Paul Ryan. I think that's a pretty good guess. Anybody else? Anybody other comments from our viewers? I'm watching the feed. I'm looking for comments. Who do you think was responsible? McConnell? Anybody want to say McConnell? All right, RJ, who is it?
I think it's a little bit of both. Again, President Trump and I think a lot of his advisors made a mistake of outsourcing the implementation of their immigration policy agenda to a group of people in House leadership that really weren't aboard with his agenda from the get-go. You can't expect Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell to be out there fighting tooth and nail for your immigration priorities. Again, President Trump shook up the Republican Party.
Dave and Sandy are both saying Paul Ryan. Amy says Mark Rubio.
Okay, well,
Paul Ryan should have initiated the package at the very beginning of the last Congress.
Paul
Ryan, it needed to be moving through the House first, then go to the Senate instead of letting the Senate take the lead. I say Paul Ryan.
But the president is the de facto leader of the Republican Party. You could argue that Paul Ryan, the Speaker, essentially serves at the pleasure, the will of the president. Okay, if the White House was more forceful on demanding wall funding be a part of any spending agreement, or else the president won't sign it. Last year, I think we'd have the wall funding by now. This is a combo failure of Republican leadership and some of the forces inside the White House that aren't aboard with the president's agenda. He is ill-served by many of his staff members over there who tried to distract him with other shiny objects while they rammed other things through and ignored the wall, one of the main things that he ran on.
What's the political impact for Democrats, particularly Nancy Pelosi, if they appear to be standing in the way? When you got 11,000 people in a caravan marching to the border, what's the political impact for the Democrats when they're standing in the way of critical border security?
Well, they're in a presidential primary kind of election mode. Listen, all Democrats, they used to support border barriers. I don't even think it's that they're totally opposed to border barriers. They're just totally opposed to President Trump. By opposing the border wall, you oppose President Trump. They're letting their hatred of this president cloud their ability to judge the merits of a policy proposal that they once supported. That's the issue here. Right now, they might be getting a lot of credit and clout from the people on the far left fringe within their party, but I think a lot of the American people are going to be turned off when they're opposed to any type of border security at every step of the way. The caravan's growing. Just wait until there's a rush at the border, because I guarantee you it will come. We'll see what the Democrats say then.
Well, Von Seal McKinley says if the Democrats win in 2021, they're going to tear down the wall, even if it gets built. Tear it down. Mr. President, tear down this wall. Is she right?
Well, I think that's a good question that should be even asked now. If Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, if they think the wall is immoral, it is the worst thing in the world, why aren't they introducing legislation to tear down the miles of wall we do have right now? Yeah, I mean,
they want to abolish ICE. They want to abolish interior enforcement, worksite enforcement. They don't support E-Verify.
Right.
They don't want state and local cooperation. Right. They want anarchy.
Well, if they believe all these things, then let's see them try to enact those kind of things rather than just doing it via opposition of President Trump.
This is one of the places you're going to get the truth about immigration policy, and we're going to give you the tools to get those things done. It doesn't come cost-free. All of you who've supported FAIR in the past, I thank you. Please note a button if you care to continue to support our efforts. We will put that money to good use to help bring more and more Americans to the table, because as you can see, special interests, this is a political system we were given. Maybe it doesn't work that well, but it's the only political system we have. And FAIR and our supporters work the best we can within the terms of that system to try to bring about positive change. Our voice, your values, your future, that's what's at stake. Please support our efforts now. Go to the donate button on our page and look tomorrow on our phone to action page for all the tools that you can use to help the president get everything he needs out of this conference committee to move forward in this Congress. I'm Dan Stein with RJ Hauman. Thank you for joining us.